You the inside story of what really happened. Elsewhere tonight...
Barclays, shame on you!
We expose more chilling intimidation by the pro-Palestinian mob as they force a primary school to close over spurious bullying claims. Find out what I discovered when I went down to the scene earlier today. And Keir Starmer's past freeing dangerous crooks is firmly in the spotlight. Again, this time, it's his court defence of Bin Laden's ambassador of hate, Abu Qatada, that's raising eyebrows. Should we be worried about Labour's record with terrorist sympathisers? Plus, the UK's Eurovision act, Ollie Alexander, is in hot water after calling Israel a genocidal apartheid state. Should the BBC drop the singer from next year's contest? That's tonight's head-to-head. I'll be joined by Winston Marshall from Mumford & Sons. And on the panel tonight, we've got the brilliantly bold Ben Leo, Lord Bailey and Amy Nickel. And a cheery little Christmas message from our Home Secretary.
We want you to celebrate out and about in your communities, but while you do so, we are going to help keep you safe.
Yeah, basically, the longer version says Merry Christmas, everyone, but try not to get blown up at a Christmas market. This is Patrick Christys Tonight. Here we go. All right, get in touch. Has the Labour Party got a problem with terrorist sympathisers? Email me now, gbviews@gbnews.com. I'll see you after the headlines.
Patrick, thank you. Good evening. I'm Sam Francis. The headlines at 9. Police in Prague say a large number of weapons have now been uncovered at the university building where 14 bystanders were killed in that mass shooting we've been hearing about throughout the course of this afternoon. At least 24 others are still injured. Reports say the shooter was a student at the Faculty of Arts and Charles University. His body has also been found in the area. Czech police say the suspect's father was also found dead earlier today. Officers responded to the reports of a shooter on the roof at around 2 o'clock UK time this afternoon. Prague's police chief has told reporters there is fresh but unconfirmed information that the 24-year-old may have been inspired by similar terror attacks. Well, here in the UK, a murder investigation has been launched after a 4-year-old boy died following a knife attack in East London. The Metropolitan Police said they received a call just before 11 o'clock last night, raising concerns for the welfare of a child at a property in Hackney. The boy was found with knife injuries and was taken to hospital, where he later died. A 41-year-old woman has been arrested on suspicion of murder. An inquest into the death of the asylum seeker aboard the Bibi Stockholm barge has found that he died from compression of the neck caused by hanging. The Albanian asylum seeker was found unresponsive aboard the barge on the 12th of December. The coroner said there weren't thought to be any suspicious circumstances surrounding the death of the 27-year-old. And a pre-inquest review is due to be held on the 9th of July next year. Well, meanwhile, ministers appear to have stepped back from their plans to increase the minimum income requirement for migrants. The Home Secretary had told the Commons that the threshold would rise from £18,600 to £38,700 by next spring. That was in a bid to tackle rising net migration. But instead of immediately increasing the amount, documents released by the Home Office today say it will now rise in stages. First to the lower figure of £29,000 in the spring of next year. James Cleverly, though, says the plans will still bring net migration down by 300,000 people a year. Thousands of travellers' Christmas plans are back on track after an unexpected rail strike in France has come to an end. The disruption caused cross-channel journeys to and from London earlier to be suspended, with at least 30 Eurostar trains cancelled. And services aren't due to start up again until tomorrow morning. But vehicle-carrying trains will start running this evening. And winds of up to 115 miles an hour are adding to that travel chaos as Storm Pia has swept across parts of the UK. Fallen trees have caused injury, damage and disruption, with one man taken to hospital in Derbyshire after a tree fell onto his car. British Airways flights have also been disrupted, and National Rail is reporting that routes across Scotland, England and Wales are also still affected. And there's another yellow alert that's been issued for snow and ice across the north of Scotland into the weekend. That's the latest from the GB newsroom. We're on TV, online, DAB+ radio and on TuneIn. This is GB News.
Heck of a lot to get through tonight, but I'll start with this. I woke up this morning to James Cleverly wishing everyone a happy Christmas, but try not to get blown up by a terrorist at a Christmas market.
Merry Christmas, everybody, and at this time of celebration, I'd like to say a big thank you to the counter-terrorism police who have been working all year round to keep us safe. If you're out and about and you see something that just doesn't look right, makes you feel uncomfortable, is just out of place, let the police know.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody. Cheers, James, as well, you know. It might have been better if radical Islamism hadn't been allowed to fester in Britain in the first place, but is the Labour Party uncomfortably close to terrorists? Now, we know that Tony Blair gave letters of comfort to the IRA, and some of those people have been linked to more than 300 killings. We know that Jeremy Corbyn was describing Hamas and Hezbollah as his mates. More and more is coming out now about Sir Keir Starmer's back catalogue of jihadi nutcases. The latest is Abu Qatada, who entered Britain under a false passport and was then granted asylum. He issued a fatwa saying it was justified to both kill Muslims who renounce their faith and kill their families. 4 years later, he made a speech in which he effectively issued another fatwa advocating the killing of Jews, including children. Starmer did, of course, through his legal profession, help him to try to resist deportation and imprisonment. It's also emerged Keir Starmer gave legal advice to Islamist group Hizb ut-Tahrir in its appeal over a ban in Germany. If you think you've heard of that group, then you probably have. They were the group calling for Muslim armies to unite quite recently. But Sadiq Khan's past has also come into question. Khan, who was so morally opposed to Trump that he was keen to ban him coming to Britain, did act for the Nation of Islam and their leader, Mr Farrakhan, who thought that Hitler was a good man. He argued on behalf of the hate preacher that he should be allowed into Britain, again acting within his legal profession, of course. He's previously been criticised for sharing a platform with Stop Political Terror, which, kind of ironically, was backed by an extremist imam who preached to the 9/11 hijackers and acted as a recruiting sergeant for al-Qaeda. He reportedly addressed 4 meetings of the group to campaign for Baba Ahmad, a Tooting constituent and terror suspect who Mr Khan and others tried unsuccessfully to stop being extradited to America before the 2005 general election. Ahmad later pleaded guilty to conspiracy and providing material to support terrorism. In 2007, both Khan and Jeremy Corbyn were allegedly present at a 10th anniversary celebration of the Palestinian Return Centre, which is outlawed by the Israeli government. Israel says the PRC is affiliated to Hamas and has been involved in initiating and organising radical and violent activity against Israel in Europe. Sadiq Khan has previously said that his legal career meant that he had to mix with some unsavoury characters and that he didn't agree with their views. But could you blame some people for maybe questioning the amount of times that has happened? And when you look at the record of some prominent members of the Labour Party, is it fair to raise questions about how comfortable or otherwise some of them have been mingling with extremists? Let's get the thoughts of my panel now. I'm joined by GB News presenter Ben Leo, Conservative peer Lord Bailey and author and broadcaster Amy Nicole-Turner. Lord Bailey, I'll start with you because you possibly know the likes of Sadiq Khan a little bit better than anybody else on this panel. He will say, and does say, that obviously throughout the course of his legal profession he was just mingling with these people. You know, is it fair to raise questions about how comfortable or otherwise some members of the Labour Party have been with extremists?
I think there's 2 things to say. Of course, it's right to ask these questions. That's our democratic right. But you have to look at it in a legal sense and in a personal, political sense. For Keir Starmer, for instance, cab rank rule, dealing with people coming through, fine. But that means he should be asked now about his enthusiasm for these people's behaviour, where he is with them, and forced to make public statements for or against them. Same with Sadiq Khan as well. I think the slight difference here is a lot of this with Sadiq Khan was done when he wasn't a lawyer or he wasn't representing them in court. Now, that's a slightly different thing because he has more choice there. But the cab rank rule is a real thing in this country, and it does mean that sometimes a barrister in particular will have to represent people they don't agree with. It's one of the things that makes our legal profession work. OK,
Amy, your views on whether or not the Labour Party is slightly uncomfortably close at times to radical extremists?
I think you're making a big jump because you've taken a series of examples of... I think I agree with Sean, actually, for once in my entire life. It's Christmas, after all. It's just lawyers doing lawyering. Like,
not all of
everyone, not all of it, but a bulk of it. And I think it's incredibly misleading to link Keir Starmer to Abu Qatar. Yeah, he had a series of lawyers. He was instructed by his legal firm to represent him once. It doesn't affiliate his personal feelings whatsoever, and it's really unfair to kind of try and put that across to the public. I think the Telegraph's reporting of that was really irresponsible, actually.
It's not
it by
unfair.
no
The question
means
does
represents
have to
his
be
feelings or
asked.
Labour's feelings. Everybody has the right to a lawyer.
Well, the question does need to be asked. It's illegitimate to ask it, and the Labour Party, of course, have a much stronger affiliation with people in this arena.
This is it. And Ben, when you look at the likes of, the Tony Blair IRA letters of comfort situation, Jeremy Corbyn, who Keir Starmer was happy to try to get elected not once but twice, and some of the previous historic links there, whether it's through the legal profession or attending other platforms where extremists were talking, do you think there are question marks over the Labour Party?
100%. And by the way, just before I start, that clip of James Cleverly there isn't too far off Sadiq Khan's terrorism is part and parcel of living in a big city. So, as you said, thanks a lot, guys, for harbouring that kind of threat in our capital city. But yeah, definitely, when it comes to Keir Starmer, like, as you said, he was the man who was rallying for Jeremy Corbyn, who was mates with Hezbollah, was happy to mix with...
He wasn't mates
Sorry,
Starmer...
no matter what Starmer says, he was doing the rounds today in Estonia with our troops, wearing that camo jacket, acting all patriotic. No matter what he says, he cannot whitewash the fact that for many years he campaigned to get Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister of this country. He wanted to be his deputy, all while in the knowledge that he was happy to hang around with Hezbollah and Hamas. And we all saw what Hamas is capable of on October the 7th, and he cannot just whitewash that now by saying that he's moved on and he condemns Corbyn and his ilk. It's nonsense.
Amy, Sadiq Khan was questioned prominently by the Jewish Chronicle and other outlets as well about the amount of times he's appeared on platforms with some out-and-out extremist wrong-uns, and he was saying things like, I didn't really know what their views were, I just turned up and said my bit and left. Do you buy that?
Yeah, because it happens to me all the time. I have to hang out with wrong-uns every single week.
What, terrorists?
Well, no.
I don't answer that.
I don't know.
But I think that one of the things you mentioned was advocating for Palestinian rights. I don't think that should be seen as massively controversial. You mentioned that it's illegal in Israel, but they, of course, want to silence that conversation. But I don't think we should.
But hold on, Amy. This is the tricky part, isn't it? Advocating for Palestinian rights, spot on, absolutely perfect to do. Advocate for certain groups, maybe not so much. So it's not about the topic, it's how you go about doing it. And I think that's where Keir Starmer and particularly Sadiq Khan will have questions to answer. Keir Starmer's
been so cautious. He's been overly cautious.
Yeah, he has been now. He has been now when he feels like he's in the spotlight.
He's got a chance.
But for years, we have to find out how enthusiastic was he personally to support these groups. Again, I go back to the fact, legally and professionally, he did the right thing, cab rank rule. Yeah. But he did an awful lot of it. And was it because he was a specialist or because he enjoyed it? And that's the question we need to ask.
But by the way, may I add, Starmer isn't just content with cozying up with people of questionable association with terrorists. He's also campaigned a couple of years back. He signed that joint letter demanding that foreign criminals weren't deported from the UK. I know it's a slightly separate issue, but it's proof that his judgment isn't the best.
It's part of a basket of stuff. So Keir Starmer, quite rightly, will say, cab rank rule, I was a lawyer. Like you said, there was a heck of a lot of this, but you know what? They sound like interesting cases to be on the inside of. So I can understand that logic behind why he was quite routinely defending people who are just, extremists and jihadis, etc. I don't agree with it, of course, but I can understand the logic behind it. But then when you add that to things like him signing that declaration to get people off a deportation flight, banning all deportations, helping them have access to SIM cards so they can fight it even more, and you just start to wonder...
And sorry, even today, Starmer coming out in that exclusive chat with Christopher Hope earlier in Estonia, he was saying that he backs the Irish, Leo Varadkar, who's colluding with Joe Biden to now prosecute and overturn legislation to prosecute Northern Irish veterans who were immune from the Troubles. So time after time, Starmer is siding with not people who he should be siding with.
You're mischaracterising the letter as well, because a lot of the people on that flight
What
were
letter?
people who about deported.
The Jamaican deportation
Yeah,
list. Why?
Because a lot of people on that list were people who had committed small drugs-related offences and had
Good.
families.
What, you think
and
they should stay
kids
here?
In the UK, they had families and children in the UK.
Yeah,
So
but
yes,
the
I
deal
do
is-
think they should stay
the
here.
deal
And I
is you
think
come
it
here and
would-
you don't offend.
They'd
That
be
is
quite-
the deal.
I'm sorry,
A
if
lot of
I
the
moved to
things
Australia
that
and
they were
committed
found guilty of were not really something that you would.
Some of them weren't, though. I mean, some of them were vile criminals.
Yes, but they were all committed as they were British
no, but then he
citizens.
has
So
to
most of the
pick,
people.
he has to pick and choose.
People arrived here as
No,
kids,
The
grew up
point,
here,
the point
and
is,
in
the
most
point is
cases it
this:
didn't make
if we have to qualify this so heavily, then there's something wrong. And the other thing to remember as well, this is in a background where Keir Starmer was at the very top of a Labour Party that was hugely anti-Semitic, and the amount of the amount of vitriol and basically force that they were with an anti-Semitic nature inside the party. Remember what was done about it, all of that investigation? It was terrible.
Final word, Ben, just on something that we actually led in with there, which was about that James Cleverly Christmas market video. I mean, your takeaway from that, I couldn't believe what I was watching this morning. Yeah, happy Christmas, everybody. By the way, if you see something suspicious at a Christmas market, call the counter-terror police. And I thought, hang on a minute, why is that?
Why is what, sorry?
Well, why are we living under such,
Because we've had
fear?
sorry, Sean, we've had 13 years of a Tory government that's happy to have uncontrolled mass migration. We've had a city the size of Birmingham flooding in legally every 2 years. And we've also got an issue where we were once rulers of the world, rule Britannia, we ruled the waves and colonised the world, yet we can't stop dinghies coming in across with undocumented
I've got to say, it's
fighting-age
I have
males.
to say, James, is
That's why we're unsafe.
If you become the Home Secretary tomorrow morning and the police say to you, the risks are high here, you feel it's your job to say to
He's got to say it, of course he
help
has.
keep us safe. That's the first thing. And the second thing is the entire political firmament has put us where we are when it comes to immigration. Labour have fought every single initiative the government has had to try and lower immigration, so they cannot.
Sorry, Sean, you guys had an 80-seat majority in 2019 and you spaffed it up the wall in absolute fashion.
All I'm saying
you could have done whatever you wanted.
That's true. I'm not denying it, but all I'm saying is we're not alone in that. We're not alone in that. It's the entire everything that the party's done to try and.
You can't blame Labour. You've been in power for 13 years.
It's all of us. That's what I'm saying. It's all of us. It's them too.
I also think, depressingly, James Cleverly was quite possibly talking about some homegrown terrorists as well there. So, he's got the whole range. Look, Sadiq Khan previously said of his history representing, quote, unsavoury characters, let me be clear. These aren't my chums. I have never hidden the fact that I used to be a human rights lawyer. I've acted for people who are alleged of committing acts of terror. I think it is unfair to assume the case I did as a lawyer, particularly in relation to characters who are unsavoury, are representative of the views I have got. I have never hidden the fact that I was a chair of Liberty. I've never hidden the fact that I campaigned for Babar Ahmad against the US-UK extradition treaty. There we go. Now, still to come. After a gunman stormed a university building in the Czech capital Prague, killing 15 people, including his father, and injuring 24 more. We will go live to Prague to get up to speed with the latest, and we're going to talk to some eyewitnesses there as well. But up next, after it's emerged that the UK's Eurovision entrant Ollie Alexander signed a controversial letter that blasted Israel as an apartheid regime, should the BBC now dump the pop star from next year's contest? Chair of the National Jewish Assembly, Gary Mond, goes head-to-head with former Labour advisor Stella Chantakidou. That will be incredibly fiery. Don't miss out. But before that, we have 3 amazing prizes that are guaranteed to be won by one lucky viewer in our Great British giveaway. 10 grand in cold hard cash, tech and vouchers. And if you haven't entered yet, why not? It's easy. Here's the details.
This is your chance to win 3 amazing prizes that will get your new year off to a great start. First, there's a terrific £10,000 in cash to be won. Imagine what you can do with that. We'll also give you a tech update with the very latest iPhone 15 Pro Max. Plus £500 worth of shopping vouchers to spend in your favourite store. The retail therapy could be on us. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday, the 5th of January. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Well, up next, I've got a special treat for you because Winston Marshall, off of Mumford & Sons, is live in our head-to-head as we ask if Years and Years frontman Ollie Alexander should be dropped as the UK's Eurovision entry for calling Israel an apartheid state responsible for genocide. Don't go anywhere.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Well, former Tory minister, easy for me to say, Anne Widdecombe coming up soon, but first it's time for the head-to-head. Now, he found fame in pop band Years and Years and was last week announced by the BBC as Britain's entrant for the Eurovision Song Contest next year, but now singer Ollie Alexander is at the heart of an anti-Semitism storm after it emerged that he signed a letter calling Israel an apartheid regime. The statement signed by Alexander was organised by the LGBT pressure group Voices for London and published in October, saying, "We are watching a genocide take place in real time and we cannot sit idly by while the Israeli government continues to wipe out entire Palestinian families. Current events are an escalation of the state of Israel's apartheid regime, which acts to ethnically cleanse the land." Well, the Tory party yesterday rounded on the BBC for selecting the pop star, accusing the corporation of either a massive oversight or sheer brass neck, with anti-Semitism campaigners calling for him to be replaced. So tonight, I ask, should the Beeb drop Ollie Alexander from next year's Eurovision contest? Let me know your thoughts. gbviews@gbnews.com. Tweet me at GBNews. While you're there, take part in our poll, which is live now, and I'll get the results to you shortly. In a second, we're going to debate this with former Labour advisor Stella Chantakito and chair of the National Jewish Assembly, Gary Mon. But first, let me bring in former Mumford & Sons frontman Winston Marshall. Winston, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. I don't think we've had the pleasure before. What do you make of this? Should the BBC drop Ollie Alexander for his views on Israel?
Patrick, thanks for having me on the show. I'd like to start just by quickly reviewing the letter that Ollie Alexander signed. It was on October 20th, not 2 weeks after the October 7th massacre. It really is worth reading. It's by a group called Voices for London, gay, LGBTQ, etc., group. And in the letter, they describe Israel committing genocide, apartheid, ethnic cleansing, etc. Now, if you were to sign, if you really believe this, you clearly do not understand what genocide means, what apartheid means, or what ethnic cleansing means. It suggests you have little to no understanding of Israel or Palestine, or if you're going to use words like apartheid, South Africa. It is an anti-Semitic letter that has been signed. It's anti-Semitic because it's explicitly anti-Zionist. To be anti-Zionist is to be against Jews having sovereignty, a sovereign nation. So that is anti-Semitic. Now, it is also quite a comical letter. I'll give you an example. It says criminalization of homosexuality in much of the world comes from colonialism. Now, they're right, but not in the way they think, because they manage in this letter to lambast the history of British Empire. But if they had read the Quran, which they clearly have not, they would realize, yes, the colonialization by Islam over the last 1400 years has been fundamental in making homosexuality illegal. But of course, the most obvious comical aspect of this letter is that it's an international queer solidarity with Palestine. They believe solidarity with Palestine is a queer issue. That's direct quotes, which of course is another example of cows for Mackie D's or chickens for KFC, as we've seen again and again and again. Now, to the question of Ollie Alexander, who I think is a very talented musician and he's written some great songs. We've certainly sung some great songs. Should he be representing Britain? Well, as someone who abhors what he's said and what this letter, and I also note, I've not seen any evidence that he wrote anything on October 7th, nothing, or October 8th. Despite abhorring what he said, I think absolutely we cannot cancel people. We cannot, just because we disagree with them, no matter how abhorrent their opinions are. I mean, perhaps if he was actually inciting violence, maybe then we could draw a line. But no, he is right to his opinion. And if Britain is it stands for anything, it's the liberal idea of freedom of speech. It's a very old British value that we must stand by, even when we abhor what we are hearing. So I think actually we stand by it. Whether I'll be supporting Britain, no, I'll probably support Israel in this particular this year. But we must not silence Ollie Alexander.
Yeah, look, I'll just let you go there because I thought it was all gold and you've nicely encapsulated all the issues in one go. So, Winston, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Would love to have you back on at some point soon. It's the wonderful Winston Marshall there, who's their former Mumford and Sons frontman. So, look, we're going to have a debate with this in the studio now. Should the BBC drop Ollie Alexander as our Eurovision contestant? Labour advisor, former Stella Chantakito and chair of the National Jewish Assembly, Gary Mon, join me now. Stella, your views, do you think it was an anti-Semitic letter? Should it be dropped?
No, I don't think it was an anti-Semitic letter. I think it was nuanced. As a person who works in policy, I wouldn't use exactly these words to describe the facts that they described. As I've said before, I'm not the ICC, so I'm not going to say whether there is a genocide or not going on right now. But a lot of viewers are thinking that. And it is what's the purpose of artists like Ollie, if not for them to express their opinions? I think this is an entirely innocent thing, especially when you're talking about the Eurovision, which is a highly politicized event year in, year out. Why should the Israeli government tell the UK what its artists cannot say?
There were calls, apparently, from some nations that if Israel was allowed to take part in this, then they would be pulling out of the whole thing. Gary, do you not think the job of a singer is just to sing and not to get involved in this stuff? What's your stance?
Absolutely. I don't like the idea of politics mixing with sport and entertainment. I'm somebody who 50 years ago represented this country in butterfly swimming. I was an England international swimmer. And I believed, and we said at those days we had the situation with the Americans boycotting the Moscow Olympics and numerous other cases of politics and sport and entertainment getting intertwined. I'm opposed to that completely. And, you know, we see even to these days Iranian athletes and Iranian chess players won't compete with Israelis. This is something that is against the entire ethos of fairness in sport and in entertainment. And so I think that what has happened is Ollie Alexander has crossed the line here, and I do believe the BBC should remove him as our Eurovision.
So you think he should be removed?
Yes.
Winston Marshall thinks he shouldn't. You think it's just free speech?
Patrick, an artist without politics is like a marriage without love. I do not see the point. Why would you become an artist if you're not allowed to have politics? Why do you think Ollie went down that route? It is simply unfair. And he's not an entertainer. I'm sorry, he's not an entertainer. He's an artist. And it's completely different from sports. But even then, even again, are people not allowed to have political opinions? Especially if you were to think. I understand you don't think genocide is going on. But we don't know yet. We don't know what's happening exactly because international journalists are not allowed in Gaza. But if the facts do come a few years from now, or a year from now, or after Christmas, and the situation starts to crystallize, and we realize exactly how many people died, exactly what were the actions of the IDF, which we already know. I mean, the Israeli government is already calling Palestinians human animals. It's not like we are not aware of their intentions and we're not aware of how they view Palestine.
Do you not think it's a bit silly, though, Gary, for a group of people identifying as the queer community, of which he supposedly is a prominent member, to be coming into bat for a nation that may well throw them off a building, if indeed any buildings are left standing?
A nation or a political party, Patrick?
Well, people make up the political
Silly
party,
is an understatement. Israel is one of the most gay-friendly countries in the world, with regular gay pride marches and demonstrations all over Israel. If the gay community was to spend some time in Gaza, they might not survive there very long.
Well, they wouldn't.
Exactly.
But Patrick, here you're talking about the political opinions of a political
this
of a
guy's
military
representing
party.
Britain on an international stage, which pulls in a massive audience.
But wait a minute, you are assigning blame to Palestinians, where over half of the population in Palestine is children. So you are telling me that people who never got to vote for Hamas should be held responsible. Should be held responsible for Hamas's actions, and the Israeli government should not be held responsible for their actions today, right now.
There's a simple point here, and that is that the overwhelming majority of the Palestinian people have, in polls, have said they do support Hamas. And also,
the overwhelming majority of the Palestinian people are children.
And also, with regard to all the Palestinians who claim to have been killed, the only information we have about that is Hamas information, because Hamas controls the health ministry in Gaza. We don't have any independent verification that 20,000 Palestinians have been killed.
How many do you think
died? So many terrorists have been killed. How
many do you think died?
I don't
you know,
know.
20%. According to the Israeli government, according to the IDF, 20% of Israeli soldiers who have died in this conflict have been killed by the IDF itself. This is how. Can you tell me, Gary, how many people do you think died? OK, you're telling me 20,000 is not how many have died.
Look, what I want to get back to...
No.
Look, what I want to get back to, because we can sit here and have a row about Israel-Palestine the whole time, but what I want to get back to is whether or not somebody with those views should be representing us at a Eurovision Song Contest.
If he represents us, then his views will become the story and not his talent as an entertainer.
OK, and you don't think
you will win more votes if you do that. But that's what the majority of the British people support a ceasefire. Even David Cameron, the foreign secretary, now supports a ceasefire. So actually, if anything, I would say Ollie makes a great representative for the United Kingdom.
There we go. It's called a head-to-head for a very good reason, and it was indeed a corker. So who do you agree with? As the UK's Eurovision act, Ollie Alexander called Israel an apartheid state responsible for genocide, should the BBC drop him. David says, yes, the BBC should drop him, but will not, as they are pro-Palestine. Lloyd on Twitter says no, because he is correct in what he says. OK, your verdict is in very, very shortly as well. Shoal Shirley's been on. The Bieber door figures like Ollie, as they say exactly what the BBC head office is thinking. Right, OK, thank you, Shirley. 84% of you on Twitter think that the BBC should drop Ollie Alexander from Eurovision. 16% of you say they shouldn't. Coming up, Suella Braverman launches another attack on Rishi Sunak, this time over his plans to let some criminals serve time in the community rather than in prison. Is the former Home Secretary right to demand prolific offenders get automatic jail sentences? Former Prisons Minister Anne Widdecombe, she weighs in shortly. But next, there's been a horrific shooting in the Czech capital of Prague, where at least 15 people have been killed when a gunman opened fire at a university, sparking chaos in the historic city centre. We will bring you the latest, including eyewitness accounts from some British lads who were just metres away. Don't go anywhere.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, Prague's historic city centre descended into chaos today after at least 15 people were killed in a mass shooting at Charles University. Another 24 were injured in what is the deadliest shooting in modern Czech history. The killer has now been widely named as David K. The sound of gunshots raining down sparked widespread panic, with tourists, including several Brits, desperately fleeing the scene. The Czech police president confirmed the shooter was a student at the university and it is not being treated as a terrorist incident. The gunman's father was also found dead earlier today. To react to this shocking developing story, I'm going to cross to Prague now to speak to three eyewitnesses, Joe Hyland, Harry Cranston and Sam Miller, who were just a matter of metres away from when it first happened. Look, thank you very much, lads. Great to have you on the show. I'm not entirely sure exactly which one is which at the moment, so I'm just going to direct it to whichever one of you it feels comfortable enough to talk first, really. Yeah. It's great to see that you're all still safe and sound. Could someone just talk me through exactly what happened for you today, please?
So we went to go see the castle. That was on our checklist for Thursday, itinerary. And we came back down from the castle, and we were going to group together some other bits on that side of the river. As we were obviously walking down towards the bridge where the shooting happened on the other side, we were walking across that bridge. We were going to go get some food, and we heard this massive bang. And we all looked at each other, and we all sort of questioned it and went, "It can't be." Almost convincing ourselves that it's not. And then we started to see the people running the other way off the bridge. Then we started to hear the sirens. Then the other bangs came, the other gunshots. And then we knew when the Czech police were telling everyone to run and people were running for cover that we were in the middle of something dangerous.
Yeah, gosh. I mean, thank God that you're all OK. I think that was Harry there. Can I just ask, Joe, what it was like for you? Did you guys just take cover and wait it out? I mean, there must have been quite a lot of confusion.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you hear the first one, and Harry said to me, he was like, "Was that a gunshot or what was that?" And then the next one goes, and then you hear the police sirens, and then you hear the people screaming, the people running, and it was frightening. And we, obviously in a place that we don't know where we are, it's our first holiday without any parental figure or anything like that, and we don't know what to do. We live in Cornwall, which is a very non-dangerous location, so we're not even used to anything of the sort. And so we just turned to the tube and ran for it. And then obviously you don't know if the tube's the best place or the worst place to go, because at that time we don't know how many killers there are, if there's multiple people going around, it could be the best or worst place. So we just jumped on the first one, went the opposite way to our hotel, and just to get outside of the city as quick as possible.
Yeah, I mean, you did exactly the right thing, and I can only imagine, I don't know, Sam, I mean, were you all calling back home afterwards? There must have been quite a lot of concern, because, I don't know, if your loved ones or anything like mine and they see something like that going on while you're abroad, I mean, I shudder to think what the reaction might have been, Sam.
Yeah, well, obviously, firstly, it's just about getting yourself safe. You can't really be thinking too much about contacting people. That once we got ourselves down into that tube, the first thought for us was to obviously phone our parents and loved ones, because we weren't yet 100% safe, and we just wanted to make sure we could speak to them, worst case scenario in case anything happened, and also they're that bit of comfort for us, obviously. So tell them we love them and stuff, because obviously at that point we weren't actually aware of what was going on, just gunshots and people running. So yeah.
Gosh, just quickly, Harry, one more to you. If you'd have been presumably just a couple of minutes earlier getting to the other side, I mean, things could have been quite different, couldn't they?
Yeah, funny you should say that. We have another friend on the trip. He's not with us right now, but he wanted to get a drink on our way down from the castle. And obviously, us being Brits, we love our cup of teas. And over here, there's no milk. There's no milk in the teas. So he got a cup of tea with no milk and asked them to provide him some. So they all went searching off to get milk. So that took a good 5 minutes or so. So you'd think butterfly effect if he didn't ask for his milk and his tea, you dread to think what would happen.
And the crazy thing is that it's a university shooting, and we're all 18 or 19 on a gap year, and if we are there, we look like university students, and they were the people he wanted to kill. But you've like the people that did die's families are just at this time of year. It's just we're lucky to be here.
It makes you think how lucky we actually are to be here right now. It's a cliche, but it puts things into perspective.
All other small worries kind of just go straight out the window, and
absolutely. Well, can I just say thank you very much for coming on the show, and good luck to you, and thank God that everything's all right for you and your families as well. And obviously, you know, our hearts go out to everyone who sadly has not made it today. In a way, you guys being essentially saved by a British cup of tea is an interesting takeaway from all of this. Thank you very much. Take care. That's Joe Highland, Harry and Sam there. Right, OK, look, I'm going to bring in now Czech MEP for the Czech People's Party, Tomáš Stahovský. Tomáš, thank you very much. Sorry to keep you waiting a little bit there. Look, an incredibly dark day for your country. Just talk me through what's going on for you at the moment.
I have to say that it's a very sad day for the Czech Republic. After 34 years after Velvet Revolution, we didn't have any terrorist attack like this one. And I don't want to speak about the attacker, about murder. I would like to speak only about the victims and say to their families that we are with them. I hope so that everybody who is in hospital, he has the best care. The Czech police has it really now a lot of work. We are investigated all the things, and we have it the highest level of the attention of the Czech police, Czech intelligences, and Czech military services. Also, we are taking care about all British citizens. And
Tomáš, can I just ask? Quickly, sorry. Do we have any idea about the motive behind this attack yet at all?
Yes, we have some ideas. We know some information. I think he was psychopath. He was not. He was sick person. He was alone. We are speaking about someone who doesn't have any relationship with someone else. But we are still investigating this case. Also, give us 24 hours, and after 24 hours, the police president and Minister of Interior will inform us about ongoing investigation. But I have to say that we have it really more than 6,000 people in Prague what are now investigating and taking care about security of the people in Prague.
Tomáš, thank you very, very much. Really insightful to get you on. I'll chat to you again soon, and take care. That is Czech MEP for the Czech People's Party, Tomáš Stahovský. There. Coming up, we expose more chilling intimidation by pro-Palestine mobs as they force a primary school to close over spurious bullying claims, and find out what I discovered when I went down there earlier. But next, Suella Braverman has launched an attack on Rishi Sunak. Find out what she had to say with former Prisons Minister Anne Widdecombe in just a sec.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Welcome back. Well, under a new sentencing bill, criminals facing jail terms of less than 12 months will be allowed to serve their punishment in the community. But Suella Braverman has hit back at this. She's claiming the policy won't stop them from reoffending. She's demanding automatic jail terms for the most prolific offenders. Well, I'm joined now by former Prisons Minister Anne Widdecombe, and Anne will be joining us in just a second. What do you make of this? Do you think that we should have some of the most prolific offenders just allowed to serve their sentences in the community? That, to me, sounds quite a lot like freedom. Should the worst offenders be automatically sent to jail? And obviously, as this country continues to be swept by a knife crime epidemic, a 4-year-old boy was sadly stabbed to death in East London last night as well. In Liverpool, stab survival cupboards containing vital medical equipment have been installed in the first initiative of its kind. These are designed to help the public treat victims before paramedics arrive. And then grief. I mean, you couple that with James Cleverly's Happy Christmas message earlier on, don't you? Which is basically, you know, Happy Christmas, everybody. Try not to get blown up by a complete lunatic at a Christmas market. And it does really make you wonder about law and order in this country. And instead of building more prisons so that we could put more people in those prisons and give them longer sentences, it appears to me like another catastrophic infrastructure problem where we decide to capitulate. Instead, we say, look, what we're going to do is send fewer people to prison, and the ones we do send there, we're going to remove quicker and release them out into the wild so that they can move in next to people like your loved ones. Anne Widdecombe does join us now, former Prisons Minister. Anne, thank you very, very much. Is Suella Braverman right? Should we be locking up more criminals for longer?
Well, yes, of course we should. And crucially, we should not be sending any message to people that it's OK, you know, to commit offence after offence after offence. And as long as they're fairly minor offences, well, they won't go to prison. That is not the right message to send out. Because, of course, there are two reasons for putting people in prison. One is to punish them for what they've done. But crucially, the other is to keep people safe from them. And if people are committing, even if it's low-level crime, if they're committing it prolifically, then the rest of us are not being kept safe.
No, indeed. And it does appear like we're all being sacrificed because we haven't built enough prisons. I know in Anne Widdecombe's Britain, we'd have plenty of prisons and plenty of people in them, wouldn't we, Anne?
Well, we most certainly would. And we would have at least 20,000 extra prison places. And when I went through this, when I was actually in the Home Office in charge of prisons, we had a sudden surge in the prison population. I didn't say, oh dear, don't send people to prison. I brought in extra prison places, brought in a prison ship, brought in cabins from disused Norwegian oil rigs, put them down in the lower security prisons. Plenty of ways of doing it if you have the will. Sunak has no will.
No, indeed. Now, Anne, we're going to have to be very quick here because we had a little bit of a delay getting you on, but I understand that you've got some comments about Dame Esther Ransom because she's announced that she's signed up to Dignitas. What are your views on this?
Well, let me say right away, I understand fully why she and anybody else who is facing a long drawn-out death, I understand why they would want the law changed. But the reason that it's never been changed and the reason that it's failed time after time in both houses of Parliament is that getting enough adequate, reliable safeguards into the system is well nigh impossible. Just look at what is happening in countries that have already done this.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Anne, thank you very, very much. Anne Widdicombe there. Now, look, I've got an action-packed final hour of this show coming your way. I visited a primary school that was shut down earlier by mad parents.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good evening to you. I'm Alex Burkill here with your latest GB News weather forecast. Whilst there may be a bit of hill snow across northern parts through the next 24 hours or so, it's a milder story elsewhere. And we do still have some strong winds and some rain around, even though the deep area of low pressure we saw earlier today has now cleared away towards the east. So a blustery picture as we go through this evening and overnight. Some outbreaks of rain quite likely. Hill snow is an issue across some northern parts, particularly for Shetland. Here we could see something of an ice risk as we go through the night into Friday morning, and for many turning increasingly cloudy overnight, and with those blustery winds, temperatures not dropping much, some places in the south staying in double figures. Chillier further north across parts of Scotland, could be a touch of frost here first thing on Friday morning. Otherwise though, through the day it is going to be largely cloudy for many of us. There will be further outbreaks of rain, it is going to be blustery at times, and some more snow, perhaps some ice is likely across parts of Scotland too. Some brighter breaks developing in the southwest, and here it's still going to be relatively mild, albeit temperatures a little bit down compared to today. As we look towards Saturday, and it's a wet picture across many northern areas, particularly Scotland, western parts likely to see some heavy rainfall totals building up. A bit more snow around, again bringing the risk of some icy patches too. A drier picture further south, but quite a cloudy one with a few spots of rain possible. That rain then does gradually make its way southwards as we go through Christmas Eve, eventually clearing through as we go into Christmas Day. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Good evening, it's 10 p.m. and this is Patrick Christys Tonight. Parents mobbed up and threatened teachers because an 8-year-old child was asked to take off a Palestine flag that his parents had repeatedly sent him to school in. I went to that school today and spoke to some parents. This is not normal behaviour in Britain. Not a single military veteran should be sent to court to face historic prosecutions, not while the IRA get off scot-free. But it turns out Sleepy Joe Biden was behind Irish thumbsucker Leo Varadkar's Troubles ambush. We hit back. The government sneakily rode back on the wage cap for immigrants. They've bumped it back down to £29,000 a year now. And no chance of a white Christmas over here. But in Switzerland, they're looking at legalising cocaine. Less lock 'em up, more rack 'em up. Should we legalise the addictive narcotic in the UK? One mother, as well, is making her relatives pay for their Christmas dinner, and she's even upped the price. Is this out of line, or is it absolutely fair play? Now, we'll have all of tomorrow's newspapers tonight in my press pack. On the panel, we've got bullish Ben Leo, lively Lord Bailey, and amazing Amy Nickel. This is Patrick Christys Tonight. It's all go. Get your emails coming in. What do you think about parents mobbing up outside a primary school today? GBviews at gbnews.com. I'll see you after the headlines.
Patrick, thank you. Good evening. I'm Sam Francis in the GB newsroom. The headlines at 10. Police in Prague say that a large number of weapons have now been uncovered at the university building where 14 bystanders were killed in the mass shooting that we've been discussing throughout the course of this afternoon. 25 others are understood to be wounded. Reports say that the gunman was a student at the Faculty of Arts at Charles University. His body has also been found in the area. Czech police say the suspect's father was also found dead earlier today. Officers responded to reports of the shooting in the city centre at around 2 o'clock UK time this afternoon. Prague's police chief has told reporters that there is fresh but unconfirmed information that the 24-year-old may have been inspired by another mass shooting in Russia. Well, here in the UK, 4 more people have been charged in connection with the murder of Ellie Edwards. Merseyside police say 2 men and 2 women have been charged with assisting an offender. The 26-year-old beautician was killed by Connor Chapman when he opened fire with a submachine gun outside a pub on Christmas Eve of last year. In July, Chapman was found guilty of her murder and was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 48 years. A murder investigation has been launched after a 4-year-old boy died following a knife attack in East London. The Metropolitan Police said that they received a call just before 11 o'clock last night, raising concerns for the welfare of a child at a property in Hackney. Inside, officers found the boy with knife injuries. He was taken to hospital, where he later died. A 41-year-old woman, who we understand was known to the boy, has been arrested on suspicion of murder. Ministers have rolled back from their plans to increase the earning requirement for migrants. The Home Secretary had told the Commons earlier this month that income thresholds would rise from £18,600 to £38,700 by next spring. That was in a bid to tackle rising net migration. But instead of immediately increasing the amount, documents released by the Home Office today say that it will now rise in stages. First to the lower figure of £29,000 in the spring of next year. James Cleverly, though, says that the plans will still bring net migration down by 300,000 people a year. In the US, Donald Trump's former lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, has filed for bankruptcy just days after being ordered to pay more than £116 million for defaming 2 women. He'd claimed that surveillance footage showed the 2 election workers concealing and counting suitcases filled with illegal ballots. It led to them receiving racist messages, including threats of lynching, and they were forced to relocate. A federal judge ruled this week that Giuliani must immediately begin paying the 2 women, saying that there was a risk that he may attempt to conceal his assets. And thousands of travellers' Christmas plans are back on track after an unexpected rail strike in France has come to an end. The disruption caused cross-channel journeys to and from London to be suspended earlier, with at least 30 Eurostar trains cancelled. and services aren't due to start up again until tomorrow morning. But we hear that vehicles are starting to board the Eurotunnels trains again tonight. This is GB News across the UK, on your TV, in your car, and you can get more on our website too, gbnews.com. Now, though, more from Patrick.
It is not normal for a group of parents to mob up, threaten and intimidate teachers into forcing a primary school to close. But that's exactly what happened today at Berkeley Primary School in Leighton, East London.
Barclays, shame on you! Barclays, shame on you! Yeah, don't you cry! Don't you cry! We will never let them lie!
Well, it's happened because an 8-year-old child of Palestinian heritage was apparently sent to school by his parents wearing a Palestine badge and was then supposedly segregated, paraded through the playground, his dad said, bullied by teachers. Well, this led to people posting clips on TikTok. They got tens of thousands of views. Clips like this.
Imagine an 8-year-old child was constantly bullied, harassed and mentally traumatized by his teachers because of the fact that he's Palestinian. That's exactly what happened at Berkeley Primary School. You can see behind me is a Children in Needs bear, right? Now you see the little patch on its eye. Parents removed the patch and added the Palestinian flag there just to represent the children in need in Palestine. They even told the parents that if you carry on doing this, we're going to go ahead and refer you and your kids to prevent. So Berkeley School is basically saying that if you support Palestine, you're going to become a terrorist.
Right, the school literally says nothing untoward has happened at all. They said that parents had decided to send their kids to school essentially dressed up as the Palestinian flag on a non-uniform day, because, I mean, that's completely normal behaviour, isn't it? And then a letter was sent to 8 families out of a school of 1,325 students, warning that inappropriate comments made at school, including extremist or divisive comments, would result in formal meetings with senior figures at that school. Which strongly implies something, doesn't it, when you think about it, about the kinds of views that some of these children were being infected with. It went on to say that if that behaviour continued, then they might be reported to the Counter-Terrorism Prevent Scheme, which is literally the school's job. Anyway, like absolutely normal people with good jobs to go to, a load of people turned up outside the school today. Teachers were apparently threatened and intimidated, and the father of the child, who was supposedly mentally traumatised, said this.
He attended the school with a small sticker, Pudzi sticker, with a small bow tie in Palestinian colours. The sticker was removed from him in the morning. On Monday, he returned back to school with his coat and a flag, his Palestinian flag on his sleeve. We were told by senior teachers that he would not be allowed back on school premises the following morning. I think it's happening because of discrimination, there's Islamophobia. We demand that there's resignations and Justin James should go.
I'm sorry, but this is not normal behaviour. I went to the school today and one person told me that their young child, who goes to that school, had to walk a gauntlet and that another child made a throat-cutting gesture to her. I spoke to another parent opposite the school this afternoon who isn't happy.
Heightens the tensions. Children repeat what they hear at home. Just don't think it's the right place to air these views and have this political discussion. I know this school. I don't think any of the allegations, I don't know for sure, of course, but I don't believe any of them.
You'll be able to see the Palestinian flag there. That's because the protesters then lined the street with Palestinian flags. Do you not think it's massively disproportionate to have an issue with the school and then turn up, tie Palestinian flags all down a road and start screaming and shouting and being threatening? Well, one local resident certainly didn't think that was disproportionate.
Obviously, the teachers are saying that they shut the school because they felt that they'd received threats and things like that. Do you think that's a bit disproportionate or not?
I'm very confused with that kind of statement because I live in the community. My kids went to the school across the road, and this is a very docile community.
Yeah, very clearly. We have a real problem here, don't we? We can't have a situation where schools are forced to close and staff don't feel safe going to work at the slightest offence to a certain community. There are shades of Batley Grammar School to this. We cannot normalise this behaviour. If the parents are willing to behave like this in public, then goodness only knows what they say to their kids in the privacy of their own home. But let's get the thoughts of my panel now. GB News presenter Ben Leo, Conservative peer Lord Bailey, and author and broadcaster Amy Nicol-Turner. Ben, this for me is just another example of absolute nuttery taking place at the moment.
Yeah, nuttery, good way to describe it. Like you said, we had this in Batley. There was another incident in up north somewhere where the child accidentally scuffed the Quran and the mother, quite laughably, was dragged into some village hall and made to give a grovelling apology. You've had incidents in France where I think a teacher was beheaded for potentially doing something with the Prophet Muhammad. These certain religious groups think that it's acceptable to hound hard-working staff and also take their religious views as a higher priority over the education of not just their children, but plenty of other children in that school, and it's absolutely out of order. They shouldn't, first of all, be sending their kids to school with any geopolitical propaganda on their bags or whatever it is, whether it be an Israeli flag, a Palestinian flag, or even trans propaganda. Let kids be kids. Go to school, learn, get an education, and leave that nonsense at home.
Amy, I'll come to you, because I think you have quite a radically different view to this. I mean, I would suggest, if parents are willing to mob up and protest outside of school and take kids out of school, etc. I mean, goodness only knows what they're saying to these kids in their own homes.
I think probably what they're saying to kids in their own homes is, look at the news, look what's happening in Gaza, how does that make you feel? The 8-year-old in question has family who have died in Gaza. I think his mum is Palestinian and she has family, she's lost family in the conflict. And I think to compare this to the scenes to Batley, to any sort of religious...
But it is, look at that mob.
It's
look
not at all. It's a response to the scenes coming out of Gaza.
The school had to close early, Amy.
It's a little boy who wore a Palestine badge.
His parents put the badge on him, let's be clear
What
about
does that kid know about Israel-Gaza?
He has family in Gaza, that little boy. So, of course, he would. He's well within his rights to wear a little badge. And the thing is, this school has a 70 to 80% Muslim... the kids that attend are Muslim, 70%, and the school has previous. So in 2015, they were found to ban children from fasting during Ramadan, and the school got into a load of trouble then with the parents. This has been a long-running thing with this school, that the Muslim majority are not happy with the way that this school...
Do you believe in mob rule,
treats mob rule, Patrick?
A mob turned up and the school shut, so that's mob rule.
I think this is a frustrated community who are unhappy with what's happening at the school, because they highlighted the reaction of the school to the. Let me finish my point. The reaction of the school to the conflict in Gaza has been completely different to the reaction of the school to the situation in Ukraine, when the school proudly said that the world was utterly transformed by the politics of the time. So then they wanted to embrace politics.
Interesting as well, that the reaction of people from a certain community to what's been happening in Ukraine as well. They want a ceasefire, don't they, in Gaza? No talk of a ceasefire in Ukraine.
That's because they're directly affected.
Sean, your views on that?
Here's the point. Firstly, both communities are suffering, both the Jewish and the Muslim community, and in particular, this school community. The school were well within their rights, in my opinion, to say, look, let's not do the flags, because look what it has led to. Look what it has led to. And what the school was probably trying to do was separate its very young children from any politics at all.
Were they selective about the politics?
Remembering that school would probably have a much better idea that this was a potential outcome, because they live in that community, they work in that community, than most people would have done as well. And what's important to say, an external safeguarding organisation has said that the school, that there's no validity to these concerns here.
Yeah.
But what's really important is a guy on TikTok has been able to mobilise a mob, and we are all right with that. That's the thing now. We as a nation have to start to say, actually, this enough is enough. The first question I would ask, right, are the police involved, and is this a hate crime?
Well, here we go. So I've got a statement, I'll get some reaction to now, from the Department of Education. They've said intimidation of teachers and staff is unacceptable, and we are working with Berkeley Primary School to support them. During periods of heightened community tensions, we support schools to take steps to ensure they remain calm and supportive learning environments where all pupils feel safe. There is no evidence to support any allegations of bullying or misconduct has been found through either an external or internal investigation. That's the comment as well. From
So
Bartley Primary
one last thing to say.
Bartley.
One last thing to say. This action is designed to bully. If you're a teacher anywhere in this country and a child asks you something along these lines, you're going to have to say something extremely pro-Palestinian or nothing at all because you wouldn't want this to happen to your school. It's not right.
You're more outraged by this story than the scenes coming out of Gaza. That's my problem.
I'm outraged by the fact that
all
people
three of you have dedicated more time and energy to being angry about
Amy,
this.
let me speak. You've had plenty to say. I'm outraged at the fact kids should be going to school, learning and having fun, not being plied with political propaganda, be it Palestine flags, Israeli flags, any other flags. I don't care. What child, Amy, answer me this, what child can form an original, individual, informed opinion on geopolitics?
I think you really underplay children's abilities and agency, because of course they're going to have opinions of what they see in the news.
When they're being forced.
No, but here's the important thing as well. I would react exactly the same way if it was a Jewish flag, Israeli flag.
Same as me.
Yeah, this isn't about the geopolitics. This is about the safety of people in this country.
What about the precedent? What about the precedent for this, Ben? Now, so when someone is offended, or when elements of the Palestinian community are offended, or elements of the British Muslim community are offended, say, well, what happens now? We get a mob turning up outside of school with megaphones, the school shuts down.
Yeah, this is outrageous. The fact that other children have now had their education cut short because parents can't behave themselves and conduct themselves in an orderly manner. There's bullies at that school, but it's not the children, it's those parents.
This is not them being offended. This is tens of thousands of people dying.
But not in this
That's
school.
not the issue.
It's not in this school. And those teachers...
And this is people who care about hundreds of thousands of people dying being referred to prevent. That's ridiculous.
Sorry, Amy, you have no idea how those teachers feel. There's a very big chance that those teachers are actually pro-Palestinian. That tends to be the thing you find amongst education people. They're quite lefty and lean that way. But that doesn't matter.
I've just provided
those teachers are carrying out their job and they've been bullied.
I've just provided you with evidence that this school has previous in this area.
So
I have listened to the testimony of of the parent with the son involved, and he has said that people have been increasingly unhappy with the way they've been treated. What you're not listening. They referred the parents to prevent.
No. What we need to get straight
what the mum and dad
what we
have
need
said.
to get straight here, right, is that they said that kids were turning up at the school spouting off extremist stuff. Primary school people. So the problem there is, where have you got that? Well, that quite often could be seen to come from home, and it's a school's duty to
it's their legal duty to do that.
I would want them to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what we want. It's their legal duty. The point is this. There's teachers who've gone to school to educate young people. Next thing you know, they're being assailed by a mob. That isn't fair. It doesn't matter who the mob supports.
Look, I think we've got a very, very, very worrying time ahead, because this stuff is going to keep happening. We've seen it in MPs' offices. We've seen it outside Parliament. I can just about tolerate certain things outside Parliament, not everything that we've seen. But it's a tip up outside primary schools. It's going to happen everywhere. I'm telling you, this is going to happen everywhere. This has been formally referred now, the school, to the relevant external safeguarding authorities, who have reviewed the allegation and found that it was indeed false allegations made by the parents. That's come from the school. Look, coming up, as Switzerland declares the war on drugs has failed and considers legalising cocaine, should the UK now follow suit? My panel of... it says panel of experts. That's misleading. Give me their views. And next, as it emerges that Joe Biden gave Ireland the green light for the Troubles ambush, which could see British soldiers dragged through the courts yet again, is our special relationship dead? Do we now have an enemy, the other side of the Atlantic and the other side of the Irish Sea? Maggie Thatcher's former right-hand man, Niall Gardner, joins me in just a few minutes. But before that, here at GB News, we want to make your new year spectacular, right? 10 grand in cash, a new iPhone and vouchers not to be sniffed at. Someone is guaranteed to win all of those prizes, and it could be you. Here's how you could be our first big winner.
You really could be the winner of the very first Great British Giveaway and receive nearly £12,000 worth of prizes from us. First, we've got a simply stunning £10,000 in tax-free cash to give you. Cash that you can spend on anything you like. Next, how about a new phone? You'll also get a brand new iPhone 15 Pro Max. And if all of that wasn't enough, how about a further £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at the store of your choice? For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday, the 5th of January. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Right, up next, we get the latest from Prague. Yes, we do indeed. Niall Gardner weighs in on Joe Biden's decision to greenlight Ireland's Troubles ambush. Where did this lot get off? No British soldiers, past or present, should go to a foreign court and face trial, as far as I'm concerned. Don't go anywhere.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Welcome back. Now, I just want to start by quickly updating you on the shocking events that unfolded a little earlier on in the Czech capital of Prague, where a gunman opened fire, killing at least 15 people at Charles University before it's believed killing himself. I think he also killed his father a little before that. There were scenes of chaos across the city. University staff told to barricade themselves into rooms during the attack. Police have this evening confirmed they are working on the theory that the gunman may have been responsible for the deaths of 2 people last week as well. in a forest near Prague. A little earlier on, I spoke to 3 eyewitnesses, Joe, Harry and Sam, British lads who were caught up in this madness.
You hear the police sirens, and then you hear the people screaming, the people running, and it was frightening. And we, obviously in a place that we don't know where we are, it's our first holiday without any parental figure or anything like that. And we don't know what to do. We live in Cornwall, which is a very non-dangerous location, so we're not even used to anything of the sort. And so we just turned to the tube and ran for it. And then obviously you don't know if the tube's the best place or the worst place to go, because at that time we don't know how many killers there are, if there's multiple people going around, it could be the best or worst place. So we just jumped on the first one, went the opposite way to our hotel, and just to get outside of the city as quick as possible.
OK, well, look, closer to home, Rishi Sunak last night vowed to fight the Irish government after they announced their decision to take legal action against a British law that gives legal immunity to British soldiers accused of Troubles-era crimes. But in a shocking twist, it's since emerged that US President Sleepy Joe Biden personally gave the Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar the green light to pursue this rare legal challenge. Well, I don't know about you, but I find this incredibly offensive. I'm joined now by former Margaret Thatcher aide Niall Gardner. Niall, thank you very, very much. Is Biden's special relationship now with Dublin and not us? Is this absolutely offensive? I mean, who's advising this guy?
Patrick, many thanks for having me on the show today. And Joe Biden's actions are absolutely outrageous. It's an appalling intervention directly against British national interests here. And I think that Joe Biden is incredibly rude. He's out of order. He has no right whatsoever to be lecturing the British government. He has no right to be interfering in British affairs here. And I do think this is hugely insulting to the British people, hugely insulting to those brave British servicemen who fought in Northern Ireland. And Joe Biden really, I think, has to be put back in his box. He needs to back off. He has become the useful idiot of the Irish government. And he in no way represents the views of the vast majority of the American people who are pro-British. They love Britain. And Joe Biden is the most anti-British president of the modern era.
So to be clear, Joe Biden, the President of the United States, has told the Irish Taoiseach that he can take Britain to court, the ECHR, to try to get British veterans hauled before courts on things like murder charges. That is nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an absolute disgrace. I think it's hugely offensive, frankly, to British servicemen who served very bravely. And also, of course, Joe Biden is invoking European supranational courts, ECHR. The British people need to be freed from the shackles completely of the ECHR. The British government has to take the UK out of the European Court. And for Joe Biden to be calling on the authority of European courts over Britain, that is an absolute disgrace. What an insult, actually. He has no right to do so. Yeah. He should just mind his own business. And there's no wonder why Biden is such a hugely unpopular president in America.
You know what this is, right? This is a guy who didn't get his way when it came to Brexit, Joe Biden. He was saying that Brexit would see a return to the Troubles, and it hasn't. And I just wonder if he's trying to stoke it up here now.
Yeah.
And whether that's part of it.
I think that's an important part of it. Joe Biden hates Brexit. He is a huge supporter of the European Union. He is somebody who has no respect whatsoever for the democratic will of the British people, for the sovereignty of the British people who chose to throw off the shackles of the European Union. For a US president to be intervening like this, I think is unprecedented. It's out of order. I think it demonstrates a president who frankly is out of his mind. And Joe Biden really needs to mind his own business, back off, respect the will of the British people.
What does Rishi Sunak need to do? Because I can see a couple of things happening now. For all of those people who are on the fence about the ECHR, if all of a sudden we stick to some kind of ruling that means that British veterans, who are now possibly quite elderly, by the way, are flown over to the island of Ireland to face charges that from years ago that they may have already been found innocent of. In the case of Dennis Hutchins, that happened. We've got to get out of the ECHR.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, absolutely. British veterans are heroes. And they have fought for their country very, very bravely. the British government needs to take the UK out completely from the ECHR. No European court should have any say over British law. Also, Rishi Sunak needs to stand up to Joe Biden and tell Joe Biden this is none of his business. We need the British Prime Minister to stand up to the worst US president, frankly, of the modern era, the most anti-British president. And Rishi Sunak really needs to demonstrate strength and resolve, because this is bullying by Biden. It's unacceptable. The British Prime Minister has to stand up to that.
It's bullying by Biden or whoever's looking after him. Anyway, that's for sure. Niall, thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.
Niall Gardner there, former aide to Margaret Thatcher. Look, coming up very soon, it's emerged that gangs up and down the country have made millions posing as Pudsey bears for children in need. So can we really trust people who claim to work for charities, especially at this time of year? But first, tomorrow's papers, well, they're flying in. My panel of experts will help me chew through the headlines in the liveliest paper review you will get anywhere on telly, so you'll be way ahead of the game. Don't miss it. Brilliant. Thank you, mate. Lovely. Really, really powerful, that.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Let's bring you tomorrow's news tonight now in the liveliest paper review anywhere on telly. The very first front pages have just been delivered for my press pack. All right, we're going with the Metro. Uni sniper rampage. We've covered that a lot tonight. Christmas tourists run for their lives as student kills 15, injures 24. We go over to the Eye now. Christmas travel chaos as storm and strike hit rail, roads, air and sea. Can I just politely say, like, there wasn't much of a storm? This is just on the front of the Eye. Storm Pia creates major getaway disruption, causing flights, train and ferry services. Apparently, 150 miles an hour winds battered Britain. Well, all right, fair enough. The Guardian,
revealed huge rise in hospital admissions with malnutrition. More than 800,000 patients were admitted to hospital with malnutrition and nutritional deficiencies. Prague student kills 14, The Guardian says. I do think that's risen to 15 now. U-turn on minimum salary for family visa. We're going to zone in on this in a second because the Home Office tried to slip this one out just before we came on air. The Home Office has made a U-turn on its much criticised plan to imminently raise the minimum salary requirement for British nationals. They said that salary was going to go up to about $38,700. It would reduce the number of people coming to this country. Well, they've rowed back on it. We go quickly to the Telegraph. Royal family persuaded Queen to end her days at Balmoral. Princess Royal discloses Elizabeth II feared making life difficult if she died in Scotland, but the family decided to... I was going to say push her into it. It's probably a bit extreme, isn't it? Going nowhere for Christmas's storm and strikes, chaos brings Britain to a halt. And we've got on there on the front page of The Sun, Alex, why I had to come home. This is a scoop. Wow. This is a scoop. There we go. Well done. Missing teen Alex Batty has revealed why he left his mum and granddad after 6 years drifting into Europe. This is that missing teen who went missing. Talk of him joining some kind of spiritual cult with his mum and granddad over in the Pyrenees. Anyway, The Sun, by the sounds of it, have spoken to him, so it will be a fascinating read. Now, of course, let's get the thoughts of my panel. GB News presenter Ben Leo, Conservative peer Lord Bailey, and author and broadcaster Amy Niskell. Can I start, please, with this U-turn on the family visa income threshold, right? So it was a planned limit of £38,700, and the government is now reducing it to £29,000. I mean, they've already caved.
They don't care, do they? We've had years and years of proof and evidence that the Tories don't care about controlling migration. All Sunak was doing with this, in my opinion, was just throwing the Tory right a bit of red meat to keep him occupied for a couple of weeks. And now it comes to the crunch and he's rowing back on it. If the Tories really cared about migration, they'd pretty much close the borders and reduce net migration to the tens of thousands, as they've promised to do for years and years and years. But, as I said, they do not care.
OK, so it was £18,600, which is, you know, not a huge amount of money if you want to come and live and work in a country and maybe benefit that country with the amount of taxation that you're going to pay. So that's where we're at in the minute. They said they were going to hike that to £38,700, right? And that was 3 weeks ago. And now they've already rowed back to 29 grand. Sean, your views on this?
Look, far be it from me to defend the government, but a rise from 18 to 29 is still a significant jump. I think there's two things here. Part of it is about communication. They should have bottomed it out before they said anything at all. And so they wouldn't be in a position of people accusing them of a rollback. And I still think they're moving forward. But the larger thing is just how many people do we let in? We control the rules, and we can do things around, are you allowed to bring dependents, are you not? We can put a cap in. All these tinkering around the edges, it doesn't feel like it's having any effect. We just need to fundamentally change the rules. And the first thing, deal with the backlog.
Well, they can't be trusted, surely, Amy. I mean, they talk a good game. Stop the boats. We'll do whatever it can. We'll leave nothing off the table. And then you slip a tweet and a statement out at about, I think it was about 8 p.m. today, I saw it anyway, that basically shows that you're rowing back on a measure that you said could reduce immigration by 300,000, which, by the way, would still leave it at about net 400,000 a year.
But I hated this from the start. I've sat here and moaned about it all the way through. So I think it makes sense, doesn't it? How could you possibly say, oh, you can come here and work for us, but you can't bring your girlfriend or your wife or your kids? That was awful. That's horrible policy. So, of course, it could never go through.
Well, Australia do that.
Yeah, everybody else does that.
Oh, Australia,
why can all other nations across the globe protect their borders properly and behave like normal countries, but we can't?
Why are you so frightened of people coming here to contribute?
I'm not frightened. There's just too many people. I don't care if they're white Americans. I couldn't give a damn. There's no room. Well, there's no room, Amy. Where are they going?
There is. There's 400,000 vakencies in the NHS that need filling.
That's not... But, Amy, this is the problem, isn't it?
We're crying out for labour.
The NHS had 300,000 vacancies. They let in 300,000 people to fill those vacancies, and we still have 300,000 vacancies. The point is, where are those people going? This country will always need some immigration, but we must have control of that immigration.
But also, would you not agree that it needs to be ethical as well? So those people are entitled, surely, to bring their partners.
Nobody's entitled. No. That's the point. Right. There is no entitlement.
Entitled at the behest of who?
Would you go work in another country and not take your wives?
I would have when I was younger. When I was younger, absolutely. And I would do it temporarily as well.
I don't think that should be an expectation on people.
Well, but if you can bring your family, we have to control how many families and when, because it all adds to the expense of Britain.
All right, we're going to move on now to another story that's going to be in the papers tomorrow, because Switzerland's capital city of Bern is considering the extraordinary step of legalising cocaine after admitting that the war on drugs has failed. In what would be a worldwide first, the Class A narcotic would be sold for recreational use as part of a pilot scheme supported by the city's Alternative Left Party. Spain, Italy and Portugal have all decriminalised the highly addictive drug, but nowhere has taken the drastic and hugely controversial step of legalising it. Ben, this story's not to be sniffed at.
You've been keeping that one up your sleeve all day. So Portugal have decriminalised Class A drugs, and Lisbon is one of my favourite cities, and over there it works. I'm not a fan of any drugs. I think...
alcohol?
I don't even really drink. I'm very limited. If I do, it'll be to get absolutely slaughtered, but I'll completely regret it the next day. But in terms of this specific story, Patrick, I think the government may as well decriminalise cocaine here, because everyone's doing it. I don't care who you speak to. You go and speak to doctors, you speak to lawyers, you speak to teachers.
Who all take cocaine. Let's be clear.
They all do it.
Decriminalising cocaine is murder. Yeah? You trace the line of how that cocaine gets up your nose and you'll find many, many criminal offences. You'll find many people being murdered. You'll find many communities utterly destroyed just so a few bankers here or in Switzerland can have a little sniff. Out of order.
You know what?
I remember when I ran for mayor and I suggested that we test bankers and insurance people in the same way we test forklift drivers, etc. People freaked out. What you're seeing here is middle-class action, middle-class power in action. Now that they all fancy sniffing coke, now that it's losing some of its social faux pas, so let's legalise it. It kills people.
Do you not think that people are going to be doing it anyway regardless? So the government may as well, listen to me, may as well get the tax money from it, fill their coffers. They may as well educate people on the dangers of drugs and, additionally, provide apparatus and finances to test drugs as well, because most drug deaths in this country come from people taking dodgy pills, which aren't what they thought it was meant to be. So
all of what you said is utter nonsense that people use to justify.
Oh my God, it literally works.
Let's be very, very clear. If you legalise the drugs, you kill people in communities like mine. That's a fact.
All right, Amy.
That's absolutely not a fact. What kills people in certain communities is the illegality of drugs.
Simply not true.
Most drugs deaths come from a lack of purity in the drugs.
Most drug deaths come from knife crime. Like, I'll ask you this. I'll ask
from the illegality of the drugs.
Here,
is that not a point, to be fair? Is that not a point?
Anybody here who thinks the drug-dealing cartels of the world are going to give up their illegal activities just because you want to sniff a bit of coke?
They probably wouldn't at source, would they? They probably wouldn't at source, because they're still going to end up... The demand for cocaine is still going to be absolutely massive.
It'll be bigger.
Right. Well, possibly.
It'd be much bigger. Hold on. What is the most popular drug in this country and worldwide?
Alcohol.
Why? Because it's legal. It's easy to get to. It grows a market.
It's incredibly harmful.
Yes, that's right. And cocaine would be worse if it was legal.
It actually wouldn't necessarily be worse.
Wow. Sure, with alcohol,
honestly,
you know...
Go through that with me, because alcohol is highly addictive, highly damaging, highly dangerous, and yet we welcome that whilst shutting down any conversation about any other drugs.
1 second, let me just say this. With alcohol, you know what the effects are, you know what the limits are and how much you should take. You don't sit there and down litres of vodka because you know you're gonna end up a cropper. If people knew what they were taking, how much they should take, and also weren't going to be criminalised for it, deaths would go down.
True. People know alcohol is dangerous, and they kill themselves more with alcohol than with any other drug. So what you've said is demonstrably untrue. People drink themselves to death regularly.
You're always going to get people that abuse it.
My brother was an alcoholic and he drank himself to death. I've seen it firsthand. He knew it was dangerous and he continued to do it. The idea that you put something on the label and you educate people, all that means is they know what they're doing whilst they're killing themselves.
You're conflating users with addicts. There's going to be addicts with any substance, and a user does not make an addict.
All right. Oh, that was interesting, wasn't it? Coming up, as Tony Blair jets to the Middle East for talks with the Israeli Prime Minister, is he really the right person to resolve the ongoing war in Gaza? Find out when I crown my Greatest Britain and Union Jackass as a surprise entry in the Greatest Britain tonight. But next, more of tomorrow's papers have landed. I will bring you those in just a tick. Plus, after gangs posing as Pudsey Bear rake in millions, Can we trust the people who claim to work for charities? All of that in just a tick. Don't go to bed.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests, and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time now to return to the liveliest paper review anywhere on telly. More front pages for my press pack. And we've got the Daily Mail. Well, here we go. Assisted dying. Is the tide turning? After Esther Ranson calls for a national debate, some in the church even softened their position. I mean, the church needs to be softening their position on everything at the moment, don't they? The Daily Mail's also gone for quite an odd picture story, which is basically whose arse is this? On the front page. I mean, it is. Which celeb still rocks a bikini at 51? Spoiler alert, it's Gwyneth Paltrow. There you go. No need to go to... Yeah, I didn't want to play a game of Guess the Arse. Daily Express. We go, Dame Esther's plea. This cruelty must stop. Dame Esther Ranson says the cruelty must stop as MPs from rival parties back her call for a free vote on legalizing assisted dying. The Times... More on this gunman in Prague. 14 dead. I believe that death toll is now 15. Several others injured. He's believed to have been a student at that university. Opened fire earlier on. He was one of the 15, I understand. Sorry, he was one of the 15. Yeah, OK. Call for health warnings on wood-burning stoves to curb pollution. Wood-burning stoves should be labelled with health warnings. Grief. I mean, come on. It's like when you're on the underground, isn't it? It's like, it's a hot day, remember to drink water. It's like, come off it. Treat patients in corridors. Ambulance chiefs demand action to cut queues at A&E. And we go over to the Mirror. Killer's letter to Mirror. Susie suspect, my alibi. The man suspected of murdering Susie Lampler today protests his innocence in the Mirror. So there we go. Look, those are your front pages. We've already touched on quite a lot of those stories so far. So I'm going to delve straight inside the book and go to a story that I know is on the inner pages with GB News presenter Ben Leo, Conservative peer Lord Bailey, and author and broadcaster Amy Nicole Turner. So, 7 fraudsters who posed as Pudsey Bears during a charity scam worth £500,000 have been jailed. Leader of the scam, David Levy, will spend 5 years in prison for fraud and money laundering after his gang used well-known charities like Children in Need and Great Ormond Street as fronts for their crimes. When asked where the money came from, he claimed that he had inherited £100,000 from his father, but he was actually frittering away the donation on luxury holidays, business-class flights and fast cars. Sean, scum of the earth?
Absolutely. When I read this story, I just thought the sheer cheek of it. He's literally taking money away from sick children. It's such a liberty. And, of course, the real losers of this are the legitimate charity, because if you think, hold on, is that a real charity? I don't want to take the risk, then you don't. So I think if this continues, collecting funds on the street will become a thing of the past. Of course, the other real worry is small charities, because a big charity can get around that, you know, big appeals, online, etc., big events. But if you're a small charity, what else can you do?
That is just so low, isn't it?
Yeah.
So low. Literally, I mean, not that it would ever be good to defraud from any charity whatsoever, but, you know, children in need, Great Ormond Street. Amy, your views on that? Are you pulling a face?
Am I? Oh, it's just so
like
so
you.
grotty.
This has
the
hurt you, this
grottiest
story.
thing I've heard. I mean, it's nearly Christmas. We can't. This is awful.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me feel festive. But I do think it's important to point out that most charities are legitimate. We don't want people to pay too much attention to this and worry about every single person that they see in the street.
Absolutely. Lock them up and throw away the key, Ben.
These guys, certainly, yeah, absolute scumbags, scum of the earth. But it's important to point out that, well, I mean, these guys weren't an actual charity, were they? They were pretending to be a charity.
They were just blokes in a onesie.
In a Pubsy suit.
So, bunch of scumbags, yes. However, another topic is charities generally. I think CEOs vastly overpaid. Most of them are scams in my book. 10 pence in every £10 going to the actual cause, for example. But that's a slightly different
That is a slightly different story, because I want to finish on something that I know has got a lot of people going here. Would you have the stomach to charge your own family for Christmas dinner? Well, one Welsh nan has been doing this for years. Cardiff-based Caroline Dudridge has ruffled a few feathers with her Scrooge-like approach to the festive season. So she charges a turkey tariff of £15 for adult relatives, £2.50 for the grandkids, because nothing says Christmas cheer like asking for money off your grandchildren. Amy, what will you be charging for Christmas dinner this year?
Do you know what? I kind of can understand where she's coming from, because at the moment everything costs so much, and I was thinking all the money I've spent on my just everyone, and it's mad. So I think she might be along the right lines. What's £2.50 to the grandchildren? She's paying 100 quid or whatever.
You know, it's an expensive do, Ben.
It's the principle of it. I don't care if she wants £1, 50p, £10. You don't charge people to come to your house for dinner, especially at Christmas.
What if it was do the dinner or don't do the dinner? What if it was between those two things? You know, she couldn't actually afford it, so the only way she could do it...
I'm up. I think she's right to charge.
Hear
me out. She's a grandmother. She's come to the end of her employment. You know, her money's tight for her, and she's got all her grandchildren. Her children.
Don't invite them over then.
No, if they should automatically... in fact, she shouldn't have to ask. They should say, Mum...
That's the point.
They should say, Mum, what should I bring? What do I need to cover?
I agree with that.
She shouldn't even have to ask.
They shouldn't have to ask, especially if she did it last year and the year before as well.
That's right.
But do you know what? I can guarantee those young kids would never offer, because people these days, especially Gen Zers, they don't have the capacity of mind to even think that someone else has gone out their way to give them a good time.
So if she teaches them by asking the question, let her ask the question.
All right, OK, it's time now to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. Ben, who's your Greatest Britain?
So it's an honorary Greatest Britain today. This is the last show before Christmas.
Oh, my God.
And Christmas is all about... I know everyone's forgotten it because we're so consumed with presents and materialism and money and getting drunk, may I say. Jesus Christ. It is his celebration of birth. And look, I'm not some massive religious nut. I do have an affinity with Jesus. I think he's got a lot of great lessons that we could learn from. And actually, at this time of rank materialism, even if it's just for 2 seconds before your Christmas dinner this holiday, just say thank you for my food.
OK, I vote for Ben's. I'm with... Amen, brother. What a preach. I'm with Ben. Amen. Look, my Greatest Britain is our great British armed forces, many of who will be stationed overseas, away from their families, serving us and indeed the world. So I'd like to salute them and their families, because they've done a great job at representing us and keeping us all safe.
Lovely stuff, Amy.
I've gone for Mary Earps, because she did some great swearing at the World Cup final. And this week she won Sports Personality of the Year, which I think was really great and well-deserved.
Good. Today's Greatest Britain...
It's Jesus.
Is Jesus Christ.
Amen, brother.
There we go. Right,
Hallelujah.
well done, Jesus Christ. Now, Ben, who's your union jackass?
Someone who's definitely not Jesus Christ, perhaps the opposite in the eyes of some people, is Tony Blair, sent to meet Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel, the last person who should be getting involved in the Middle East.
Only brought
Quickly.
My jackass is the rude shoppers who are running around pushing people over, being rude to cashiers, not supporting everyone. Just be sweet at Christmas and help
Okay, Amy?
It's Lady Michelle Mone
Okay.
for that interview she did with Laura Kunisberg for saying it's not my money, it's my husband's money.
OK, all right, I'm going to go for rude shoppers. All right, OK, so today's union jackass is rude shoppers. Oh, no, it's not, it's Baroness Mone. Why not?
Brilliant.
Baroness Mone. In a way, she's a rude shopper, actually, in a way. All right, OK, look, thank you very much, panel. Absolutely loved it. I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas. Lots of love to everybody at home. I'll see you tomorrow at 9. Mwah!
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good evening to you. I'm Alex Burkill here with your latest GB News weather forecast. Whilst there may be a bit of hill snow across northern parts through the next 24 hours or so, it's a milder story elsewhere. And we do still have some strong winds and some rain around, even though the deep area of low pressure we saw earlier today has now cleared away towards the east. So a blustery picture as we go through this evening and overnight. Some outbreaks of rain quite likely. Hill snow is an issue across some northern parts, particularly for Shetland. Here we could see something of an ice risk as we go through the night into Friday morning, and for many turning increasingly cloudy overnight, and with those blustery winds, temperatures not dropping much, some places in the south staying in double figures. Chillier further north across parts of Scotland, could be a touch of frost here first thing on Friday morning. Otherwise though, through the day it is going to be largely cloudy for many of us. There will be further outbreaks of rain, it is going to be blustery at times, and some more snow, perhaps some ice is likely across parts of Scotland too. Some brighter breaks developing in the southwest, and here it's still going to be relatively mild, albeit temperatures a little bit down compared to today. As we look towards Saturday, and it's a wet picture across many northern areas, particularly Scotland, western parts likely to see some heavy rainfall totals building up. A bit more snow around, again bringing the risk of some icy patches too. A drier picture further south, but quite a cloudy one with a few spots of rain possible. That rain then does gradually make its way southwards as we go through Christmas Eve, eventually clearing through as we go into Christmas Day. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse.